Okay, Rabbi say, let's get rolling. Welcome, Shovavim. Shmois ve'er boy b'shalach yisrei mishpatim. Mini and Klalis tat this year, taka. Tat. Truma tetzava. Hilim Madrigas, huh? This minute Klal Yisrael to do tshuva, to learn Hilchos Nida Taras Mishpacha, and that's the way that we do it. And the mitzvah coming on a Matzah Shabbos to learn extra Torah. Gishmak. All right, so let's get started. Let's get rolling. Last year we focused on Chatzitzas and Tefillah and the 5 days before we worked from that side. Today we're going to go into something we didn't do last year. We're going to go for Harchokos. Harchokos are a very, very important part of Hilchos Nida. The reason is because when one's wife is in Nida, this is something that comes up shaylas daily. And, most of the time people aren't, asking the shayla every 3 seconds. So most people are either doing it right or doing it wrong. I'm not discouraging asking shaylas. Go for it. But often it's not so practical. Often you have a half a second to decide. And therefore, you got to be your own posik. And once again, you ask shaylas if you could. But you have to be your own posik to a degree because these shaylas come up right, left, and center. Okay, so let's get rolling. So, there is, obviously, we're going to break it up into 3 categories. There's, with a nida, a woman who's nida, somebody whose wife is a nida, there's the isser tashmish, which is a asr midaraisa, and that is isser karas. The next level down is chiba v'nishik, hugging, kissing, and really probably any intimate touch. That is, according to the Rambam, it's also asr midaraisa, it's isser lav, malchus, and according to others, it's asr midrabanan. But usually we're going to be machmer to treat it like a deraisa based on the Rambam. And then there's the third category, which we're going to focus on today, the Harchokos, which is going to include many different things which we're going to discuss. And these things are asr midrabanan. Now one could mistakenly come to think that, listen, as long as it doesn't come to tashmish, you're okay, because the point of our Harchokos is to cause somebody not to come to the Isser Dereisa of Tashmish, the Isser Karas of Tashmish, with Isha Nida. So some might think that, if I could avoid it, so I have a different way of avoiding it. I don't keep those Harchokos, but I have a alarm on my phone that says, don't, every 5 minutes beeps and says, don't go near a wife who's a Nida, and I'll do that instead. So that would be a problem. And to such a degree, there's a pretty wild Gemara in Shabbos. The Gemara discusses, it brings down a ton of debate Eliyahu, about there was a woman who showed up to the Beis Medrash, and she said, please tell me, I don't understand what happened. My husband, he was Shana Harbe, he was Kara Harbe, he was Shimish Talmidei Chachamim Harbe, he was the real deal. Mitnei ma meis b'chatzi yamav. Why did he die at half a normal? I don't know what they normally live to 60. He died at 30. Why they normally live to 70? He died at 35. Why? He was a Talmid Chacham. He did Shimish Talmidei Chacham. He was the real deal. We all know Arich Yamecha, right? Torah is supposed to bring a long life, and this guy dies. My husband dies. She went with the holding the husband's tefillin. Give me, and everybody was like, "Oh no, avoiding her. I don't want to." Nobody had what to answer her. Until one day, Eliyahu Hanavi bumped into her, and Eliyahu Hanavi asked her an interesting question. Eliyahu Hanavi said, "B'yimei nidasai mahu etzcha." Did you guys keep nida? I mean, it's a strange question to ask this guy. He was a Talmid Chacham. He was Shimish Talmidei Chachamim. And she says, he didn't touch me. Even be'etzba ketana, he didn't touch me. And then then Eliyahu Navi asked, what about the Shiva Nikiyim? Meaning after she already had a hefsek, after the blood stopped during the Shiva Nikiyim. So then she answered, Oichol imi, v'shasa imi, v'yashan imi, b'kirav basar, v'loy al sadaltai al davar echa. So he said, listen, we ate together, we drank together, we slept in the same bed together, but he was such a tzaddik, my husband, it never even came into his mind to do anything with me. And taka, there was never a mixture. They never came to anything bad, because he was this tzaddik of a husband. He was able to hold himself back. Listen to what Eliyahu Navi answers. V'amarti la baruch ha'makoim shehargu shaloi nasid panim l'Torah shehari amar Torah vel isha benida b'tama loit dekarev. Baruch Hashem, he died. Not a crowd pleaser, huh? Baruch Hashem, he died because he didn't keep the Torah. The Torah said you stay away from Isha Nida, and that be'etzim is a problem. Meaning the Harchokos don't, when the Torah says Harchokos, don't do X, Y, Z, right? Don't eat together, whatever eating together means. Don't sleep in the same bed, whatever exactly that means, we'll discuss. And if somebody doesn't keep that, it's like they're eating chicken and milk together, which is awesome midrabanan. You can't say, I ate chicken and milk, but don't worry, I never came to eating meat and milk. The chicken and milk in its own right is a problem. This Talmud Chacham over here made a mistake. And he thought it was okay as long as he didn't come to the end result, and he died b'chatzi yamav, and he was even zeichet to Eliyahu Navi saying, Baruch Hashem, that he got killed. So that's a pretty sharp story. Okay. So the Maisa we got to keep, obviously. Now, there's a question that many ask. I don't get it. Why is it that by my wife, I have to keep these Harchokos? I can't hand something to my wife, or have my wife hand something to else. But some, random woman, some random cashier, etc., I'm allowed to hand something to her, and she can hand something to me. Surely, one has to be more. Am I mutter? And she's an Eishes Ish. Is it any better the Eishes Ish cashier than my wife? Surely that's just as bad of a problem to be with the Eishes Ish. Maybe it's probably worse of a problem. Obviously, right? So why are there no Harchokos for the other lady who's the Eishes Ish? So the answer, there's two answers in the Rishonim. One answer in the Rishonim is, I think it's the Rosh and the Rashba. I actually don't remember which one was which. But the two answers in the Rishonim are that if, by a regular woman, if you play by the rules, and if you do what you're supposed to do and don't do what you're not supposed to do, you're never going to end up falling into a trap of Tashmish Be'isr. Why? Because by a regular woman, there's something called the Isser Yichud. And if there's an Isser Yichud, you can't be alone with her. You're not allowed to. And we know in Yonim of Hilchas Yichud, we're never choshish that you're not allowed to be in a house with a woman. Let's say there's lots of people in the house, but there's a lot of doors that you could go, a lot of rooms that you could go into in theory and lock the door. When there's no such din in Hilchas Yichud that you're not allowed to be in the house because maybe you're going to go into the room and have Yichud. No, we trust you that you're not allowed to have Yichud with the woman. So if you're not allowed to have Yichud with the woman, so you play by the rules, you don't have Yichud. As long as you're in a semi-normal society, if there's no yichud, you're never going to run into any issues of tashmish, and therefore we don't need Harchokos. We already have the Isser Yichud. But when it comes to your wife, where there's an Isser Yichud, there's a heter, thank you. When it comes to your wife, where there's a heter of yichud, as we say pas v'salei, since it's somebody who you've tasted tashmish with before, and you will in the future as well, therefore, there's no Isser Yichud for your wife, but now there's a potential problem. Since you're together with her, it could, if you don't keep the Harchokos, it could lead to Tashmish Be'isr. But a regular woman, that will never happen. The other answer is that by your wife, there's a concept of Liba Gaspay. You're familiar with your wife. You're comfortable with your wife. So therefore, it's more likely to lead to problems. A regular woman, outside woman who, you shouldn't have so much to do with, therefore we're not so choshish, it's going to lead to tashmish in a normal situation. Which, derech agav, obviously, if there's somebody, a work environment or something where somebody is liba gaspa, obviously they need to put up their own harchokos, so to speak. These specific halachas don't apply, but you should think about it. There should be some distance between two people, let's say, in the workforce, if there is a liba gaspa, they have a lot to do with each other. Okay, so there's actually an interesting nafkamina between the two reasons. The reason of liba gaspa and the reason of heter yichud. And what is that? That's a kala nida. If a woman who by her marriage she ends up being a nida, so something went wrong, mistimed the period, she didn't know that the pills caused her to stain, she got a kesem, whatever it is, you have a kala nida. So by a kala nida, do the harchakos apply? Well, wait a second. A kala nida is aser b'yichud. They have to do all these things, send the 8-year-old home with them, which nobody chaps and whatever, because they're aser b'yichud, because since they don't have to pass basali, they never tasted tashmish before together, and therefore it's not pas basali, and memela, there's the isser yichud. Now there's the isser yichud, now, l'chayra, the first reason, there's no reason to apply the harchakos. And l'maisa, we don't apply the harchakos, the lower level harchakos, I should say. The harchakos like eating together and serving each other, and harchakos, like those type of harchakos, do not apply to the kala nida. However, the negia type halachas and the touching type halachas, those do apply. So, most poskim allow the husband to hand her the ksuba, because that's a big makom tzarich. They don't want to embarrass in front of everybody. Most poskim allow the husband to hand her the ksuba, and most poskim allow for the man to toss the ring, even though we usually don't allow throwing, as we're going to say, Ashkenazim for sure. We allow him to flip the ring onto her finger, and in that case, because once again, we're not going to keep the harchakos to a very high level because one of the two reasons don't apply. Okay, but back to us, who it does apply to. So the harchakos will apply whether the woman became a nida midaraisa, a regular flow, whether she became a nida midarabanan, like a kesem. What about if she's a suffix nida? There's a kesem, is that a gris, is that not a gris? What do you do? So at that time, you're aser b'tashmish because it's a suffix nida. So Shevet HaLevi says that harchakos apply at that point. Because we don't say, suffix derabanan lahakol or anything like that. L'maisa, if she's a suffix nida, we say that they apply. Before going to a Rav. Once, if you go to a Rav and he says, oh no, that's pachas mekagriz. Oh, that color is fine, so she's no longer a suffix nida. When she's no longer a suffix nida, memela, the harchakos won't apply. Yeah? What about a yom vest? So yom vest, we know tashmish is aser on a yom vest. What about harchakos? So harchakos do not apply on a yom vest. The tashmish is aser, but you could pass, you could hand, you could touch. When it comes to chiba v'nishuk, so there is a element of chumrah. Maybe we'll discuss it when we get there. There's a chumrah of not having chiba v'nishuk. Meikar adin, it is allowed as well, but there is a chumrah, the bach, etc. when we get there. Okay, now like this. The Shulchan Aruch starts off Kuf Tzadi Hey, which is the siman that discusses harchakos. Siman Aleph. It starts off. Hold on a second. Where did it go? I lost it again. There it is. Okay. Chayav Adam Lefresh Meida. V'lo yikal roish ima. One second. I'll get over here. V'lo yischek v'lo yikal roish ima yishema yargal avera. You shouldn't joke around, and you shouldn't be lightheaded with your wife, because maybe it will lead to avera. So what does that mean? Don't joke around with him. That means no knock jokes. Everybody needs to become a middle-aged Swiss yucky couple. How was your day? Good? Great. Have a good day. I'll see you later. Is that what it means? Well, you can't be frivolous, can't joke around. Is that what we mean? So this is why you're going to see a lot of different things that the poskim say. There's going to be tons of different examples, but really, the examples aren't so simple as a general rule. A lot of it is subjective, and a lot of it's dependent on the society that you're going to be part of. For example, I couldn't find it now. I was looking, but I remember seeing a posik that said you're not allowed to play chess with your wife during Zman Nidus. Now, no, it's Negeya. I'm saying, for all those people that find chess to be like a very romantic, intimate game, so for those people, it's Asr. And for all the normal people, then you can play chess. You know what I'm saying? Sheshpesh. Oh, Sheshpesh. I mean, that's... Middle East. So, the Maisa, most board games are going to be fine for most people. But once again, I'm not going to say it as an absolute rule, meaning there could be certain board games that are designed, that the type that make people hyper. And especially if, once again, you got to know, are you the Swiss couple? Are you not? Who are you? If the woman's the type that will get all giggly and hyper from this game, and it's the type of game that's designed to get you giggly and hyper, and that's part of how it works, so that's the type of game that should be avoided. Now, but we can't start making rules and picking out this game, that. I mean, the games that are fast-paced and fun, and that could potentially be an issue, depending on who we're talking about, and also depending on whether it's just the two of you playing or it's a whole group of 7 people playing. If there's 7 people playing, it's going to be less of an issue. If it's just the two of you playing, it's more likely to be an issue. But you have a question?
Oh, so speed chess on the clock then.
Oh, speed chess. I mean, that's every time I think of speed chess, I just, obviously depending on who we're talking about. You're a Yeki, right? Yeah. Fine. I'm just joking around. Okay. So now there are games that they have that involve asking intimate type questions, which are designed for couples or whatever. Whether that's a good thing to use in regular life or not, that's not the discussion now. Something like that would obviously not be something that you could use during Zman Nidus. Now, another thing is you're not allowed, included in this, is you're not allowed to speak about intimate matters. You can have an intimate type conversation with your wife during Zman Nidus. And this doesn't only apply to actual speech, it will apply to writing a letter as well. And it applies to the modern day letter, which is called email, and even more modern, which is called WhatsApp, or texting. It will apply as well, and that would be a problem, even if you're in a different city. You went to America, she's here, and you want to WhatsApp her, whatever you want to WhatsApp her, or you want to send her an email, whatever it is, that would be a problem, even though you could claim, well, that's obviously not going to lead to Aveira because we're in different areas. It is still a problem because this Kalas Roish is in its own right a Isser. So we can't start saying it doesn't apply to me. We don't want to end up like the guy in the Gemara in Shabbos Yigimel. Fine. Now, another thing that, by the way, just to be clear, one time that this becomes very tricky, sometimes for people this can become tricky, the day that the woman's going to the mikveh, before she goes to the mikveh. On one hand, you don't want to say anything intimate to her because that's the Isser included in Kalas Roish. But on the other hand, you don't want to make her feel like you could care less that she's going to the mikveh. So therefore, there's room to tread. But one has to be careful by making, you could say to your wife, I'm excited that you're going to the mikveh, but you shouldn't get into any great detail beyond that probably, because it's unclear where exactly the line is drawn, but you could make her feel that you're excited, but you should not speak in Kalas Roish intimate terms. Okay, just to be clear, you should still compliment her. And you could still hold the door open for her, because that's what everybody always does, I think, right? Good, Baruch Hashem. So, this is a good one. Saying, I love you. So you see, like some of the poskim say, it's also to say, I love you during Zman Nidus. Now, this very much depends. I mean, if this guy has not said, I love you for the last 7 years, right? And now during Zman Nidus, he gets into his head, because he just heard whatever shiur from, and he's honey, I just want to tell you I love you. So after she, wakes up from fainting, that might be a problem. You know what I'm saying? That's going to be a problem. But a guy who says I love you to his wife 5 times a day could say I love you to his wife during Zman Nidus. Now, even that guy could have different degrees and types of I love you. So the casual I love you would be perfectly fine. Intimate I love you, that could be a problem. So to say it as a klal is definitely not simple. Like
context based?
Very good, yes. Like, I don't know, do Yerushalmi say I love you to their wives? I don't know. I wonder. It's definitely dependent on who you are. Another thing, like some of the places we discussed, going out to eat, you shouldn't go out to eat during Zman Nidus. Well, that also kind of depends. If you go out to eat twice a year, so you probably shouldn't do it during Zman Nidus, unless there's some other, important reason. But it probably should be avoided if that's a very special thing for you, even though it doesn't really fit into any of the specific gedarim of that we're going to discuss. But if it's an intimate idea, so an intimate thing should be avoided. But if you're, your classic American that's going out to eat once a week, so if you go out to eat once a week, American young couple, whatever, if you're going out to eat once a week, then it's not an intimate thing going out to eat. It's pashut, it's not an intimate thing. Maybe you shouldn't go to that super special, super fancy restaurant during Zman Nidus, but a standard going out to eat wouldn't be a problem. So we can't say rules by that. You have to feel it out yourself. Does this feel like a special, intimate thing? Or just feel like just one of our regular nights out? And depending on that will dictate whether it would fall into this or not.
What about buying a present?
Buying a present. So Rav Shlomo Zalman says, I'm buying a present. When he was asked this, he said, in Yerushalayim, we don't buy our wives presents. But I think those chutznikim do often. So I think for them it would be okay. Which is actually proves exactly what I'm saying. You see in the words of Rav Shlomo Zalman, for a Yerushalmi, I guess, I don't know if this is still up to date. This is probably 40, 50 years ago, I don't know. But at that point, that was not a normal thing for Yerushalmi to do. So therefore, if that wasn't a normal thing for Yerushalmi to do, so that's going to be a problem during Zman Nidus, because that's an intimate thing. But if it's something that is done often, buying flowers for Shabbos, for example, is something the place can say no problem. Now, it gets a little bit tricky when you get into birthdays and anniversaries, and this could be a little bit tricky. Because sometimes people buy big presents for those days, and sometimes the woman is expecting the present on those days. It'd be better if that could be avoided. That's the real truth. It'd be better if that could be avoided. A present for having a baby is a little bit better. Because that present for having a baby is a little bit more, this really kind of depends on how the couples view it, the context. It depends how the couples view it. Meaning if they view it like this is a present for your act of going with having that baby as opposed to such an intimate between me and you type of thing, it's going to be okay. But if it's more of an intimate between me and you, it's probably better for it to be avoided. I can't say that it's an outright isser. It's not an outright isser, but it's probably better for it to be avoided. But Chachamina B'Rosha, one has to use his sense. And if the woman is going to be, is super expecting it, and there may be makam lahakal. But if there's no other circumstances, the chayra, it should be avoided. Fine. What else do we got? Using husband, wife, spouse, using their sweatshirts or their towels or something like that. There's no isser in using the other, as long as there's no, lesilbush issues. There's no issue using the sweatshirt or towels or anything like that, or toothbrush. No issue using toothbrush unless it's like a cute, intimate thing. Meaning, if it's like a cute thing, look, I'm wearing your sweatshirt. If that's how it is in your marriage, then all of a sudden that becomes a problem. But intrinsically, there's no problem. Put it this way. Let me just put a klal here. Yeah? If everything is the type of thing that has the feeling of that leads to intimacy, that's kind of weird. And if nothing leads to intimacy, none of these things, then either there's something wrong, or you're not being honest in terms of what actually leads to intimacy. There should be there's somewhere on the range, there's some things yes, some things not, that should be in a normal whatever, but each person in their marriage has to be able to pinpoint what it is. Therefore, saying overall klolim is going to be very difficult. That sif aleph is the most complicated of the sifim because it's very not concrete, it's very subjective. The next sifim are going to be much more subjective. Much more objective, I'm sorry. They're going to be much more matter-of-fact rules.
Going for a walk.
Going for a walk. So the Pardes Rimonim, I think it is, says that it's usher to go for a walk outside the city in the vineyards. In the vineyards outside the city.
Pardes Rimonim in the vineyards.
Yeah. So, I guess, yeah, it's cool. They put that together, yeah. Okay, so
why? Because of yichud?
yichud's allowed. But that's a romantic walk. So that means like a stam walk is okay. An extra special romantic walk is a problem. So what do we say about Gant soccer? I think it's okay, but I'm not. I could hear one argue that's like chutz min air. I think that's still within the air, but I could hear an argument. I would say the pashtus is okay, but I wouldn't be shocked if somebody wanted to say it was a problem. But I think it's okay. So I'm gonna leave it sarchin because I'm not positive about it. But my netiya, I think it's okay. I really do think it's okay, but because it's something like really special to go out and away from everybody. And Gant soccer, you're not going away from everybody. You're passing by people the whole time.
I draw a line between the sort of right side, more public bit,
And the left side of Gant soccer, I hear.
There's more reminding of that.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Now, Sipes says, Sipes is back here. I got Sipes. Fun. Sipes says you're not allowed to touch your wife because, and you can't hand her something because maybe you will touch her. So you can't touch her, and you can't even hand her something because maybe you will touch her. And the Shach points out, even a long item, you're not allowed to hand her. So you want to hand her your hockey stick. You're not going to end up touching her by handing her your hockey stick or your golf clubs, yeah? You're not going to touch. But Zak the Shach, it's still usher. Why is it usher? There's two potential reasons why it is usher. Either it's a light plug. You can't hand, means you can't hand. And we're not going to know where to draw the line. So just, you can't hand anything. Or perhaps when you hand her something, it's called negia al yedi davar acher. It's you're touching her with the hockey stick. And memela, that would be a problem. Now the Ramah adds that you can't even throw something to her. Not only is it a problem of handing her something, you can't even throw something to her. L'chayra, I assume the Sfaradim do not hold to this. I'm not positive, but I assume the Sfaradim don't hold to this. But for the Ashkenazim, you can't even throw something to her. The place he has a heter that he says that if you throw it not to her, you throw it up over there, and she goes as a right fielder goes and catches it, so that would be okay.
Would that be Carlos Reich?
Maybe, depending on if this is normal behavior. Lemaisa, that's not so pashut. Now, some people say that throwing, most don't rely on that. Some say that throwing up in the ear is okay. And why? Throwing directly to her, you're getting, she's catching his energy. But if you throw it up in the ear, then it just comes down with gravity. And that would merely be fine. I would want to differentiate between two cases. I would say that if you're 20 feet away from her and you throw it, then it's not so simple to rely on that heter, because it's true that it's going down based on gravity, but it's still going sideways based on your energy. And therefore your energy is causing it to go towards her. It's not just gravity. Whereas if you're standing next to her and you throw it up in the air, then it's just gravity that's causing it to go down. Your energy is totally gone. And therefore there is more of a heter. This is something that I would say could be relied upon when there's a reason. There's some complication by putting the thing on the floor, or maybe some embarrassment by putting it down on the floor.
You can throw the baby in the air?
Yeah, you throw the baby in the air. That's fine, yeah. But, just have to throw high and the gravity take over. Yeah. Fine. But on serious note, the baby would be a real problem, because that's already like, you're clearly like doing an intimate thing by doing something special. Not intimate, and maybe not. It's like there's something to it by throwing your wife the baby. I think that would be. I'm serious. That would be a problem. Okay, don't throw the baby so we don't call the cops. Okay, fine. Weiter. So within touching, obviously it's not just touching her on the skin. You can't touch her on her clothes either. That would also be a problem. Touch her through her clothes, and you can't. Put on your gloves and touch her. That also will not work.
What about furniture, like chairs?
So if you're both touching a chair, it's not a problem at all. The question is if you're talking about picking up chairs.
Away from.
So
You sit down and it's too close, so you want to just
Yeah, so pushing the chair that she's on.
You're sitting down. You sit down at a meal and sit close. So you just.
So if you push the chair that she's on, that would fit into Negia al Yidei Davar Acher, which is going to be a problem. So we'll see. By the way, there may be heterium with gloves and clothing, etc. If let's say he's sick, and maybe we'll see that later. But in terms of a normal situation, there's no heter of clothes or gloves. Just like you can't touch her hand, you can't touch her through the clothes and through the gloves. Now, not only that, but you can't even touch her clothes that she's wearing, even if it doesn't go through to her body. So you want to just touch her sleeve for whatever reason, or let's say she has something stuck in her, sheitel, and you want to pick it out of the sheitel, you can't do that because you can't, even though it's not actually touching, she's not even going to feel it, you're not allowed to touch her clothes. Why? Because her clothes are batal to her. Now, if it's, and vice versa, obviously your clothes as well. What about your clothes touching her clothes? Now we're two steps removed from touching. So there, we generally are machmir for, but b'makom tzarech we could be mekel. Like one classic example is, what's a makom tzarech? So, I don't know if you guys ever noticed this, but photographers tend to not be so into this nida harchokos thing. Closer, come on. Yankee, Chani, closer. And you don't want to scream out to the whole family, I can't, Chani's a nida. So, what's going to happen? She has this big puffy gown, you know what I'm saying? And it's going to be touching your pants. So we said, b'makom tzarech, and that would be considered makom tzarech, that would be allowed. Or, let's say you're going on to the bus, the train, or whatever. So, you're both wearing your coats. I'm not talking about what you're actually going to touch, that's a bigger shayla, but when it's just your coats that are going to touch, right? So, if there's 3 seats available and whatever, so it's great. You could sit in the 3 seats and have a middle seat between you and you don't have to get involved. But you go in the type of bus or train, and there aren't 3 seats. So I'm not going to say that, you have to sit on this side, she sits on that side, and Joe, the homeless guy, goes and sits in the middle. That's no big maila, you know what I mean? So then, if it's just going to be that your coats are going to touch, the baggy parts of your coats are going to touch, not your elbows are going to actually bang into each other, then you could definitely be mekel. Okay. Now, weiter. Now, what about handing a baby? So, l'chayra, handing a baby would be a problem. Why? Just like you can't hand a hockey stick, you can't hand a baby. Why would it be any different? Zak the Tashbitz, and he says, just like we see in Shabbos, that carrying a baby isn't of Asr Midaraisa, because we have a concept of Chayin Noisias Atzmai. We have a concept that babies carry themselves. People carry themselves. They carry their own weight. Remember the story of Yochanan, they carrying him out. He wasn't as heavy because people somehow carry their own weight. I don't know how this works in physics, but there seems to be such a concept that people carry their own weight. So the baby carries his own weight, and therefore you're not over this Deraisa on Shabbos. Because not like the Mishkan, I guess. So too, over here, we're going to say that Chaynes is Atzmai. And therefore, yes, you didn't really hand it over. The baby kind of carried itself. And therefore, there's no Isser. Now, I'll tell you the truth, I do not understand this. I personally don't understand the Tashbitz. Why in the world would you say that handing a hockey stick, oh, that's a problem, loy plug, or negi ali de davar acher. But by a baby, we're going to say, Chaynes etzatzmai, it's not a problem. L'meisa, it's very hard to understand. The Aruch HaShulchan rejects this. The Shevet Levi rejects this. Now, L'meisa, there are many that rely on this outright. The Chutshani and Rav Moshe Feinstein have a compromise, so to speak. They allow it when the baby is reaching out. The baby wants to go to Abba, then that's fine to take the baby. Because then we could apply Chaynes Etzmatzmai when the baby's actually doing a lot of the movement on its own. But let's say the baby, no, I want to stay with mommy. No, go to Abba. That's a problem. That it's the opposite.
Even.
And actually, Chaynes, that's me in the wrong direction. Now there are those that are mekel. I'm going to tell you that there are some that are mekel. And it seems to be there's definitely somewhat of a minhag of relying on this, even though in Svar it's very difficult. definitely a lot of people go with this chut shani and this Rav Moshe compromise mahalach of only handing over the baby when you
When he's at the age of going out.
more than the age, when he actually is going out. Yeah. So but you should know
So
that
being a month old for sure now.
being a month old for sure not.
You have to have a kvater.
Kvater. We'll get into kvater. We'll get to kvater in a second. So
Does it even make sense as they're a bonum? They would go to where they would go. Is there in the world?
yeah. So Lamaisa, just to point out, it's good to know there are mekilim. If you run into, you could run into a case where it's a major makam tzarech, etc., with switching. There are mekilim, so you should know that there are mekilim if there's a major makam tzarech. But I don't think it's kedai to live your life with it. Okay, once you brought up kvater, so it's best not to take kvater if the kvater lady is a nida. Unless you're going to be clever in a trick of the trade to get around it. Because, you can't hand the baby over. It's not a makam tsar. You can't hand the baby over from from the nida wife to her husband. And, if you put the baby, some people put the baby down on the table and then the husband takes it. And then Tanta Rosa says, oh, why are they doing that? Oh, she's a nida. Oh, shh. So if you're comfortable with that, okay, fine. And if you're not comfortable with Tanta Rosa saying, oh, she's a nida, then maybe don't do it.
You're talking about a couple who pretend to be kvata who are themselves nida.
They themselves nida, who do it anyway, who want to do it anyways because they want the skula. So it's a little bit of a Now there are some, you could do a trick or two. There are a trick or two to the train. What you do is you take the lady, nida kvater, she comes in with the baby, and then who meets her? Mother and father of baby who are in on the secret. So mother of baby, they take a picture. Then the mother of the baby takes the baby for the next picture, and then husband kvater takes the baby from the mother. Because they just make it like a picture shtick, whatever. There are ways to get around it if you really want to be creative, or you could just not.
Can she co-kvater with somebody else?
You have to ask the school of people. I don't know. As far as I know, I don't know about co-kvaters. I'm not sure. Ellie, can we have co-kvaters? Ellie says we can have co-kvaters. Okay.
Exactly.
It's like a chika. Oh no, please don't start this new minhag. Chika kvater. Fine. Okay, gewaldig. Okay, fine. Another din is that you cannot put the baby on her lap, right? Furthermore, what about putting the baby on her blanket? So, bepashtus, you can't. Just like we said, her clothes are bottled to her, so her blanket is like her clothes, and there's good reason to say that you shouldn't be able to put the baby on her blanket. Now, this could be...
She's under the blanket.
She's under the blanket.
On her.
Yeah, so put it on even if it's not on her, it's on the side of her, but it's on the blanket, which is on the side of her, this could be an issue. There are mekilim who say that the blanket is not considered like her baguette.
Well, it's not a baguette because it's not chayv tzitzis, let's say.
Okay, it's a night baguette.
It's a baguette.
Maybe.
Night baguette.
So this is what to debate. The sheets are for sure fine, meaning if you pick up the blanket, you could definitely put it on the sheet that she's laying on. L'maisa, if there's a tzarech, which it's very realistic that you'll have a matzav of tzarech, so there is room to be makel, and put it on the blanket. But if all else is equal, and it's not a tzarech, so you're better off putting it on the sheet and not on the blanket. Fine. Now, the place can discuss all these scenarios of when the baby is on the mother's lap, and are you allowed to put a pacifier into the baby's mouth? Are you allowed to feed the baby? Are you allowed to give the baby medicine? Are you allowed to kiss the baby when the baby's on the mother's laps? There's all different shitas around. I'll tell you what I think about it. Very similar to what I said in the beginning about depending. It depends whether it's an intimate act for you to do these things, because there's no isser. It doesn't say anywhere in the Shulchan Aruch there's an isser of putting a pacifier in the baby's mouth, a dummy, right? There's no issue. There's no isser. It's no question, does it fit in the Kalas Rosh? So,
Isn't it the same as putting it in her hand?
no, because the baby is its own entity. Yeah? So, therefore, so it depends. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for the high majority of people, it's not an intimate thing to stick the pacifier in the crying baby's mouth. I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't know. I don't see it. I think it's fine. And giving medicine, I don't think that's too intimate either. Feeding the baby, so I'm going to say the high majority of time, that's not an issue. You know, your fifth kid who you're having to try to stuff the food down the kid's mouth because of, yeah, that's fine. If it's like the first kid, and oh no, he's eating salads. Look, he's eating the rice cereal, and like he's actually into it. He's not just pretending to be into it, and he's feeding her. He's feeding the baby on the mommy's lap the rice cereal, and it's such a nice thing, and they're videoing it. And okay, that I already hear. That's a problem. You know, the third kid, maybe he's still faking it. The fifth kid, when everybody knows he's not interested anymore, you know. Oh, I hope my wife's not listening. Yeah, so you know what I'm saying? You have to be able to judge the situation and understand. Most of the time, that's not going to be intimate. And therefore, that's not going to be a problem feeding the baby. But once again, if you have that matzah, the first time the baby's eating salads and for you it's special, then that could be an issue. Now, kissing the baby who's on the mother's lap, that already I see as more of a potential issue. I mean, I'll tell you a point. Would you be comfortable kissing the baby who was on your sister-in-law's lap? So, I mean, it depends on the people. It depends on the person. A lot of people will not be comfortable kissing the baby who's on your sister-in-law's lap.
Who would be comfortable doing that?
Okay, so we agree. So therefore, it's not an absolute statement. I'm not saying that's the pure litmus test. But from the fact that you see that you wouldn't be comfortable, but putting the pacifier, why not? But from the fact that you see that you wouldn't be comfortable to kiss the baby who's on the sister-in-law's lap, that is somewhat of a proof that this is already something that you don't do with strangers, or you don't do with people unless you're very close to them. So this already, I think there would be more of an issue. Now, and also I would want to point out with any of this stuff, if it's going to cause you that you're going to touch her, meaning even if it's not intimate, for example, the medicine, but you know, the baby's like, you know, and you're going to end up touching her by feeding her the medicine, so feeding the baby the medicine, so that's going to be a problem, not mitzad the intimacy, but mitzad that it's going to cause, there's going to be touching.
So you need to give the baby medicine.
Okay, so, you know, try to find another eitzah. Now, if the baby is, you know, there's a chayla sheish bes, a chayla shein bes, maybe this is going to be what to do. We could talk on whatever. But if it's the type of thing which could be avoided, it should be avoided. What about carrying a heavy thing together? So let's say there's a heavy stroller or table or whatever. So not everybody agrees to this, but there's a heter from the Tzitz Eliezer and Moshe Feinstein as well. That's something that cannot be carried by one of them. They're allowed to carry together. Now, once again, I wouldn't say to just like live your life to consistently be relying on this, because not everybody agrees to it. But Makom Sarach, you could certainly rely on this. Now, one more thing is that we said that.
You can ask her to help to move the washing machine, though.
Yeah. So the Tzitz Eliezer and Moshe Feinstein say that's okay. Not everybody agrees to it. Now, well, you're surprised in which way? That it would be allowed or not to be allowed? Huh?
I've never heard of such a head.
Never heard of such a heter. Okay.
You can easily ask someone else to help you carry the stroller. Is that?
I mean, then you shouldn't. If it's easy, then you should ask somebody else.
Okay.
If it's going to be weird, embarrassing, something.
With your wife, so.
If you're going on the bus with your wife and like you don't feel comfortable asking somebody else, so then you can do it together. If you feel comfortable asking somebody else, so go for it. Yeah. Beseder. No, they say it's okay even without the Makom Tzarech. I'm saying that the Makom Tzarech you could rely on the Ramosha and the Tzitz Eliezer, but if it's not a Makom Tzarech, then why be Meko? That's all I'm saying. I didn't say Tzarech Gadol. I said Tzarech. If you could care less about asking somebody else, say ask somebody else. If you are embarrassed to ask somebody else, then do it with your wife. Fine. Now, another thing. We said, you can't throw. Another thing the person discusses is rolling. Like let's say, sometimes you want to like take your phone and slide it across the table, and it will glide across the table, and she'll catch it. That would be a problem. Ear hockey would be a problem. It's actually interesting.
That is intimate, but let's say it's like chess.
So if you for ear hockey or ping pong, it's actually interesting. The can discuss ear hockey or ping pong.
On her birthday.
So are you allowed to play ping pong with her? So depending on your personal whatever, you got to see whether that's the type of thing that's going to get like excited or giggly or whatever. But assuming we don't have that issue. So there's a heta from Menashe Klein who says you're allowed to. At first glance, it's a problem. You're throwing something to her. You're throwing the ball to her. But Menashe Klein says by ping pong, or the same would apply to ear hockey, this is not a problem. Why? You're not trying to hit it to her. You're trying to hit it away from her. So since you're trying to hit it away from her, therefore it's fine. But I want to make a little ha'ara on that. That's all good when she's actually good at the game, and it's an actual competitive game, and you're actually trying to get her out with every shot. Then you could taina, you're trying to get away from her. But if, let's face it, if you try your hardest, this game is no competition. So you're actually, hitting it to her. Or you're hitting it to her, you want her to pop it up so you could slam it. Yeah. Whichever reason you're hitting it to her, then the Menashe Klein falls out the window, and maybe it would be a problem. I would stay away, but it's a geschmack of art that how he's matter. Okay. So mice should be avoided. Another thing, sometimes you could like roll the stroller to your spouse, and for them to catch it, that could probably is a problem. That would fit into throwing. Okay, let's go weiter.
But in the same way as the throwing, if you roll the stroller like in a general direction, not quite to her, and she makes a move to it.
So that was the placey, which we don't generally hold of, but maybe. I would say if you want to roll it up the hill and let it roll back to you down the hill, like you're walking up the hill and she's like, oh, this is too heavy for me, right? So she could roll it up the hill and you could be like a step behind her and catch it, and that would be fine because that's just gravity taking it back. Fine. Now, once again, if you're on a flat surface, so it's not a problem because you could just stop and she could take over, or vice versa. And once again, if you're going down the hill, you could, catch it. She could let go and you catch it a second later. Fine. Sif Gimel. Sif Gimel says that a husband and wife cannot share a plate. They cannot eat together from a single plate. And husband and wife cannot eat at the same table unless there is a hecker. Now, why is that? That they can't eat at the same table? Because eating at the same table apparently is an intimate type thing. Now we have to have a little background here, and it comes up in many Gemaras. And apparently they used to have these small tables. Like if anybody knows what a TV dinner table is, there's a medrash about it somewhere. So a TV dinner table is a little small individual person table for the individual to sit at while he watches TV or whatever else you do. Yeah? So it's not a big table for multiple people, it's a table for one person. It seems to be that they used to have these, that's why you ever see the Gemara says, and then they remove the table. Like what's going on? You're eating and then they remove the table? If you're like, this big 12-foot mahogany wood table, that's what's going on? They brought in the movers? No, it doesn't mean that they brought in the movers. They had these individual one-person tables, and when they were done eating, they removed the table because it wasn't a big deal. It was a little table. So they had TV dinner tables. So you wouldn't share that table with somebody who wasn't your very close relative. So with your wife, you would share that table. You wouldn't share that table with your mother-in-law. That would be weird. But you would share that table with your wife. So therefore, eating together at that table is an intimate idea. Now, if I was Ramosha Feinstein, I would say such a svara, meaning when I say Ramosha Feinstein, I picked him on purpose. Ramosha Feinstein sometimes uses svaras to totally change a sugya and totally change a din because this is what's mistaber. If I was Ramosha Feinstein doesn't say this, I would say that this whole issur doesn't apply to our tables nowadays because our tables are meant for lots of people to eat together, not specifically husband and wife. And Mamela on our tables, the issur does not apply. But Ramosha Feinstein didn't say that. I know the poskim say it, so it's not true. But it's just something that I could see where Moshe Feinstein saying it, but he doesn't. So Lemaisa, the Isser applies to tables, even the 12-foot mahogany wood table, the Isser applies.
Because the act of eating together is something.
Because that's what I was thinking. There is a element, even nowadays, even if it's not specific to eating at the table, eating together still has an element of korva. But as you're going to see, let's say you were both eating a shawarma together. You don't need a hecker to eat your shawarma together, unless you eat your shawarma with a fork and knife. You know what I'm saying? So, because it's not... The yekis here are like, what? You don't eat shawarma with a fork and knife?
Why would using a fork and knife be more?
Because then you're eating by a table. I'm saying since you don't eat it at a table...
You're eating in your hand.
Since you don't eat it at a table, the din of needing a hecker doesn't apply. So, or if let's say you sit at the couch and you eat. So if you sit at I'm not saying that. Yeah, if you sit at the couch and eat, right? He sits on this couch, she sits on that couch, and you eat your food. No heckers required because you're not eating at the table.
A small coffee table. That's already.
Small coffee table is one. Yeah, that could be
That's a small coffee table.
Correct.
Everyone's there. Who's everyone? You, your wife, and your mother-in-law.
We'll discuss a little bit later about the mother-in-law, but the Maisa, it has to be at a table. So we still that din. We're not getting rid of that din. It still has to be a table. But I agree that maybe that's the reason why the Poskim didn't use Maisvara, is because there is an intimate element of eating, even though I think it's no longer a vart in the table, like it used to be. Okay.
Last question, is it just because it's Nogay thing is not as that? It's not just a table, even if the picnic's on the ground. Very common to go to the park.
Yeah, I think that when you have that tablecloth out, if you have a tablecloth, I think that tablecloth is a sirif.
Sort of buses for food.
It's a sirif, and that's your table. But if you're sitting on the floor without a table, you're not sitting on the tablecloth, and you're both on the floor, then there would be no need for a hecker.
So for like a picnic tablecloth.
Which is actually interesting, because that is something that I could hear the taina of that's a matzav of kirva. But l'maisa, there's no table, there's no need for a hecker. Now, the Taris Yisrael says something interesting, which might help me work a little bit with my svara. He says that if they're sitting further enough away that you can't reach each other's plate from where you are, then no hecker is required. Because I think that's somewhat connected to what we're saying. So if she's further enough away that she's more than arm's reach away her plate, no hecker is required. The other point of why that is because some of the Rishonim explain the Isser is that you may come to eat from the same plate. But once her plate is more than an arm's length away, you're not going to come to eat from her plate. Okay. Next, there's a heter that if you switch from your regular seats, then no hecker would be required. By the way, I should stop for a second and discuss the hecker. The hecker, if you are eating together, you need a hecker. What does a hecker mean? You have to put something on the table in your basic area, which is strange, or like something that doesn't belong on the table, or it could be something that belongs on the table but is not needed for this meal. So you're for sure not having any Coke by this meal, and you put a Coke on the table, that could be a hecker. Or if you're having one Coke and you put your second Coke on the table, that could be a hecker. Or it could be something weird. You put a bottle of soap on the table, or Nisana, you could start making, a silver hecker
80-20.
that says on it, stay away from Isha Tamea, or something like that. That'd be very romantic. It'd be great. No, we don't want it to be romantic, actually. Take it back. Yeah, so, if you want to start it. So, it should be something. Now, some poskim say that it needs to be a tefach tall. I wouldn't get involved. I don't think we should start discussing, is it the Chaino's shita of a tefach good enough?
It can't be a place setting.
So, in a second, we'll get there, yeah? So, I don't think we need to get involved. Is it the Reb Chainot tefach? Is it the Chazanish tefach? The point isn't really a tefach. The point is it should be something noticeable. So it kind of depends. Meaning, if you have high bowls and your hecker is shorter than a bowl and you're not really going to see it, that's going to be a problem. If you have flat plates and it's something, even if it's not exactly a hecker.
Her ring is a problem.
So the ring, we'll see the ring is we'll call it a mashu of a hecker. There's some that want to say a ring, since it's expensive, that a ring does count as a hecker, even though it's not large in size. But since it costs a lot of money, it's noticeable. I want to just make the ring, stop using the ring. A lot of women are taught in their college classes to use the ring. Bad idea. First, two problems. First of all, I don't know who you think you're tricking, but we all get it. When we go and we see the ring on the table, we all know the trick. So you, first of all, just, you're not getting anything. It's not discreet, the ring, if that's what you're going for.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite. And number two is...
You know what I mean if you have other people.
Yeah.
Other guests.
Yeah. So I'm saying if that's what you're using. If you have no other guests, you use the bottle of soap. Who cares? Yeah, usually the women, you want to use the ring because they don't want anybody to know that if they see the bottle of soap or they see Nissan's silver hecker,
That's okay.
then people are going to know. So therefore they use the ring. The second problem is there's too many lost rings that come from this Eitzah. So it's different Eitzah. Yeah? Would a phone work, by the way? Or not? Because there's too many people that when they sit down at a table, they take their phone. The first thing they do is they put their phone on the table. The kosher phone. So therefore, l'chayra, it wouldn't be okay. Now back to what we were saying. Besides the different options, I'm going to get into some of these other options that we use as a hecker soon. But I just wanted to point out a hecker. Now, if you switch from your regular seats to your other seats, to your nida seats, then that would be okay. So if somebody has this side of the table, the left side of the table is their tar side, and the right side of the table is their nida side, that would be fine. Now, obviously, this only works if you have regular seats. If every time you sit at different seats, then there is no problem. Then there is no eight. This wouldn't be an 8. I'm sorry. Now, if you each have your own table, I was thinking about this. This is interesting. Like right here, you each have your own table, so then no hecker would be required because you're each on your own table. Now, I was wondering, I didn't see anybody discuss this. What if you each have your own table, but the tables are touching? Like over here, these two tables are touching. So would that be a problem? Anybody have Nisano? I think you used to have when you first got married 2 pizza tables right next to each other. Yes, 2 pizza tables right next to each other, and that made your dining room table. Correct. So would it be a problem if you're on one and your wife's on the other? Is that a problem? Or is it 2 separate tables? Is it okay? Anybody have any riots?
The beds.
Beds, exactly. So I thought, just as Nisano said, I thought it's a problem if they're touching. Because we see that when it comes to the Isser of sleeping on the same bed, that if you have 2 separate beds that are touching each other, we view it as a single bed. So I was thinking, it's not mukhrach, there is room to be mechalik, but papashtas, we would say the same thing, I think, that if you had 2 tables that were touching each other, I'm guessing that would be considered one table.
If you had a bed.
Whatever, I'm saying anything. Yeah, obviously, if you have other hekerim, it's fine. But I'm talking about without a hecker. Now, as I said, falafel, shawarma, no hecker required. If you get a shomer, that would be okay. So let's say you're eating together and you tell your mother-in-law, Mami, chaniv zanida. So just letting you know so we could eat together. That would work. But that would be weird for many other reasons.
That would work. To know, right? If he puts the hecker for himself.
So that's actually they should both have they should both know. There is debate. There's machalikas in that, but we would say that they both are called both. Yeah, they're both the bad guys. Sometimes in Hilchos Harchokos we consider him to be the bad guy. She's the good girl, but over here they're both the bad guys in this one. Okay. Therefore, they both need to know about the hecker.
Therefore,
if he puts something that he chops, he's not using during the meal, but she doesn't know that he's not using it during the meal.
Maybe she's using the coke.
That would be a problem. Okay, now.
Do they have to know that that's the hecker?
Yeah, because then it's not a hecker if they don't know about the hecker. They won't be mocker.
No, what I'm saying is so you could just have one, or each one could put down one and say, "This is my hecker."
Oh, if they wanted to be separate heckers,
right.
They could. It doesn't need to be,
That might be too romantic.
Yeah.
Sharing a hecker.
Now, Real Yashiv says for a snack, no heckers required. So if you're eating, it's only a Suda type food. You're eating potato chips, no hecker required. Now, what about a big shayla, which is very, very relevant, is what if you have other people around? If you have other people around, do you require a hecker? Now, there's 3 different groups of psak on this. Some poskim say, even if other people are around, you still need a heker. On the other extreme, there are poskim that say that if there's other people around, you don't require a heker at all. Then there's other poskim that say, actually there's really another category I'll discuss in a second. There's other poskim that say, if there's somebody else sitting in between you and your wife, you don't require a heker. But if you're sitting next to your wife, then you do require a heker. I believe the minhag by a lot of people is that when there's other people around, they rely on a heker kolshu, a minor heker. They don't need the massive soap bottle on the table or an Nisanel silver heker. Rather, you can put the ring on the table. You can put a 10 shekel coin on the table, which will be the heker.
That you're not using also, right?
An extra knife.
Yeah, extra knife that you're not using.
The knife, you're not going to use the knife.
Yeah, if you know you're not using it. Correct. The knife that you know you're not using, so that will count as a heker. And she knows as well.
You said on that there's a machlek.
Oh, you're right. In a kanami, you may be more room to combine the kulas and be samech on that. Yeah, I could handle that. And also, I would say it kind of depends. There's another factor in terms of how makel you want to go in this. I would say it depends also on the matzah. Let me explain. If you're the type, it depends also on how tznius the couple is. Let me explain. If it's the type of couple that they would, as is appropriate, they would never touch in any intimate way with other people around. And also it could be depending on the other people, their children, or the other people altogether. So if they're people, once again, judged by your children, judged by others, if they're people that would never touch in any intimate way with others around, so then there's more room to be makel when there's others around. But if they're the type of people that will touch with others around, once again, each person, whether that's their kids or that's others, I'm not saying this is right, but I'm just saying, if that's the metzias on the ground, that they would touch in an intimate way with others around, oh, it's just my brother-in-law, my uncle, my cousin, whatever, and if that's the mindset of whoever, then there's more room to be machmir when there's other people around. And I think it's just a svar pshuta. I didn't see anybody write it, but I think it's a svar pshuta. Now, fine. Now, also there's fine. Now, another thing that would work is if he's on a placemat and she's not on a placemat, or vice versa. Another thing, I heard Rav say this, but I think it's a Tais Gomer. It's again mefurish against the words of the Shulchan Aruch. I heard Rav say this. If you both are using placemats, right? That's fine. Even if you normally both use placemats. Let's say you always use placemats. And now you're each on your own placemat. That would be fine. I mean, it's just the mefurish Shulchan Aruch. So we're not firmer than the Shulchan Aruch, right? So you don't need a heker because you're each eating on your own place. Each one's on their own mappa, their own tablecloth, or their own placemat. So if they're each on their own, because once again, I think this goes back to what I was saying, that they used to eat together on the one matzah. Once again, as I told you, I have a svar to eliminate the whole sieve. But Moshe Feinstein didn't say it, and I'm definitely not going to say it. But once the sieve does say itself, that if you have your own tablecloth, your own placemat, then it's fine. So it's a mefurish din in the Shulchan Aruch with nobody who argues on it. That if you each have your own placemat, no heker is required. Nobody argues on it. So it's good. I think it was a tois that I heard somebody say otherwise. Okay. Now let's get into leftovers. Now with leftovers, that's one of the cases that I was discussing before where it's getting late already. Should I stop now and continue next week?
Shrine.
Should I leave the shrine for next week? All right, we're going to leave the shrine for next week. We're going to stop here. It's getting late. I think we've been going for a while already. And Mitch Shem, we'll go for next week. We'll get more in there. All right, shkayach for listening, guys.